For many years, Israel and Iran have been enemies. They fought a long and dangerous shadow war. This means they often attacked each other indirectly, using secret operations, cyber attacks, or by supporting enemy groups in other countries. Iran built up a network of allies in the Middle East, like Hezbollah in Lebanon, which posed a threat to Israel's borders. Israel, in turn, was suspected of carrying out targeted assassinations of Iranian scientists and sabotaging parts of Iran's nuclear program. This hidden conflict kept tensions high, but direct, open warfare between the two nations was something the world hoped to avoid. The relationship wasn't always this way. Before the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the two countries had friendly ties, but after the revolution, Iran's new leaders saw Israel as a major enemy in the region. Since then, the hostility has only grown deeper. Iran has repeatedly called for Israel's destruction and has worked to develop powerful missiles and a controversial nuclear program. Israel views Iran's nuclear ambitions as a threat to its very existence. This fundamental disagreement has been the source of decades of conflict simmering just below the surface of global politics, always threatening to boil over. That simmer has now turned into a raging fire. The shadow war is over and a direct military confrontation has begun. The recent escalation represents a dramatic and dangerous new chapter in their long history of animosity. The attacks are no longer hidden or deniable, they are open acts of war. This shift happened because tensions reached a breaking point. International inspectors recently confirmed that Iran was closer than ever to being able to build a nuclear weapon. For Israel, this was a red line that could not be crossed, prompting a decision to act decisively. This situation has pulled the entire Middle East, and indeed the world, into a state of high alert. What was once a series of calculated, covert moves has now become a direct exchange of military firepower between two of the region's most powerful armies. The fear is no longer about what might happen in the shadows, but what is now happening in plain sight. The world is watching to see how far this will go, as the consequences of an all-out war between Israel and Iran would be catastrophic for global stability, security, and the economy. The new phase of this conflict began on Friday, June 13, 2025. Israel launched a massive series of airstrikes against Iran, calling it Operation Rising Lion. The goal, according to Israeli leaders, was to destroy two major threats at once: Iran's nuclear program and its ability to launch long-range missiles. Israeli jets struck hundreds of targets across Iran. Major nuclear sites were hit, including the main enrichment facility at Natanz and another at Fordow. Israeli officials claim these strikes have set back Iran's nuclear ambitions by many years, a significant blow to the program. The attacks were not limited to just nuclear facilities. Israel also targeted key military and economic sites. Dozens of missile launch platforms and air defense systems were reportedly destroyed in an effort to cripple Iran's ability to fight back. A huge fire was seen at the South Pars gas field, the largest in the world after it was hit. In Tehran, the capital, over 40 targets were struck. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel made it clear that his country would strike every site and every target of the Iranian regime, a stark warning of more attacks to come. Iran did not wait long to respond. Overnight and into Saturday, June 14th, Iran launched its own massive attack. It fired waves of missiles and drones toward Israel. The targets were mainly Israeli military centers and air bases. However, some of these missiles got through Israel's defenses. Explosions were reported in several Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv. The attacks showed that Iran is capable of striking deep inside Israel, turning Israeli cities into a new front line in this dangerous conflict. Sirens wailed through the night as civilians rushed to find shelter from the incoming barrage. In response to Iran's retaliation, Israel immediately launched another wave of airstrikes on Saturday. The cycle of attack and counterattack has now been established, creating a terrifying new reality for people in both countries. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, promised a more severe and powerful response to any further Israeli aggression. Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant issued his own threat, warning that Tehran will burn if the missile attacks did not stop. This exchange of threats shows that both sides are preparing for a wider, more destructive war. The human and physical cost of this new conflict is already tragically high. In Iran, officials report that the Israeli strikes have killed at least 78 people and injured over 320 more, with most of the victims being civilians caught in the attacks. The strikes also eliminated key figures in Iran's military and scientific community. Reports confirmed the deaths of 3 top generals, including the head of the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as well as Iran's Armed Forces intelligence chief and at least 9 senior nuclear scientists. This loss of leadership is a major setback for the Iranian regime. In Israel, the Iranian missile attacks have also brought death and destruction. At least 3 civilians were killed when missiles slammed into homes in cities like Tel Aviv and Rishon LeZion. Nearly 70 other people were wounded. To protect citizens, authorities in Israel took drastic measures. Hospitals across the country, including the large Sheba Medical Center near Tel Aviv, moved their patients into fortified underground wards. These wards are designed to withstand bomb blasts. Israel's main international airport, Ben Gurion, was also closed, cutting the country off from most air travel as a safety precaution. The escalation immediately drew reactions from around the world. The United States, Israel's strongest ally, stood firmly with Israel. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the American military was fully coordinated with Israel and had helped shoot down some of the incoming Iranian missiles. He stated that the U.S. was not surprised by the events and was prepared to defend its interests. However, other world powers expressed alarm. The United Nations Secretary-General condemned the Israeli strikes, fearing a wider regional war. Russia called for new negotiations to de-escalate the crisis and find a peaceful solution. This conflict also slammed the door on recent diplomatic efforts. A new round of nuclear talks between the United States and Iran was scheduled to take place in Oman on June 15. These talks were meant to find a way to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for lifting economic sanctions. But in light of the Israeli attacks, Iran's foreign minister announced the talks were cancelled, calling them meaningless, while his country was under fire. This cancellation removes one of the last remaining pathways to a peaceful resolution, making the current military conflict even more perilous. The direct military conflict between Israel and Iran is important for the entire world, not just the Middle East. A full-scale war between these two powerful nations could have devastating consequences globally. It could disrupt the world's oil supply, as much of it passes through the region. This would cause gas prices to skyrocket and could trigger a worldwide economic crisis. The fighting could also spread to neighboring countries, pulling in nations like Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, and creating a massive regional war that would cause immense human suffering and create millions of new refugees. The immediate future looks incredibly uncertain and dangerous. Both sides have threatened to hit back even harder, and with diplomatic talks now cancelled, there are few options left to stop the fighting. We could see Israel continue its campaign to completely dismantle Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure. This might involve even more aggressive airstrikes, possibly targeting government buildings in Tehran. In response, Iran could unleash its full missile arsenal and encourage its allies like Hezbollah to open a new front against Israel from the north, leading to a multi-front war. The role of the United States will be critical in the coming days. While Washington supports Israel, it will face immense pressure to prevent the conflict from spiraling out of control. The U.S. may try to use its influence to urge restraint, but its strong alliance with Israel could also pull it deeper into the conflict if American forces or interests in the region are targeted. Other world powers like Russia and China may see an opportunity to increase their own influence by positioning themselves as peacemakers, further complicating the geopolitical landscape and creating new global tensions. Ultimately, the world is holding its breath, hoping that leaders on both sides will find a way to step back from the brink. The path forward is filled with peril. The best-case scenario is that international pressure forces a ceasefire, allowing diplomacy to resume, however unlikely that seems now. The worst-case scenario is a prolonged, brutal war that destabilizes the entire Middle East and has far-reaching consequences for global security and prosperity. The choices made in the next few days by leaders in Jerusalem, Tehran, and Washington will determine which path we are on.